Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So tonight, our special guests are members of DeMolay, and I have a proclamation. Whereas the Order of DeMolay is the premier youth organization dedicated to teaching young men to be better persons and leaders. And whereas leadership skills, civic awareness, responsibility, and character development are learned through a variety of self-directed real-world applications and activities, building confidence, teaching responsibility, cooperation, and community service, and fostering trust, respect, fellowship, patriotism, reverence, and sharing. And whereas DeMolay has carried out the aforementioned for 99 years, and the Stillwater chapter has served the community of Stillwater since 1921. And whereas in March of 2018, citizens of Stillwater will join the members of DeMolay to celebrate the 99th anniversary of the Order of DeMolay. Now, therefore, I, Gina Noble, Mayor of Stillwater, do hereby proclaim March as the DeMolay month in Stillwater. Congratulations. Would anyone like to speak?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Hello. My name's Alan Hendrickson, and today I'm blessed to be representing Stillwater DeMolay. For 97 years, Stillwater DeMolay has been a driving force in our community, and we plan on continuing this tradition of excellence. My chapter and I are truly honored to be able to help this great city, and we look forward to assisting more so in the future. Our chapter is one of the most accomplished in the state, winning Chapter of the Year 5 years in a row, as well as working over 300 hours of community service with groups such as the Humane Society and Habitat for Humanity. DeMolay has been an amazingly positive influence in the lives of many young men across the nation, including myself. Before I joined DeMolay 3 years ago, I was a shy boy who couldn't speak in front of a crowd to save his life. But here I am. DeMolay has made me more self-confident. It's made me a better leader, a better friend, and most of all, a better son. I would personally like to invite anybody interested to contact us on Facebook at facebook.com/DeMolay of Stillwater or email us at stillwater@okdemolay.com. I'd like to thank the City of Stillwater for allowing me to speak today, as well as all in attendance. Have an excellent evening.
Thank you. Would you like to see a picture? Look back here. Come up. Here you go. All right, come on, so hold this. Excellent. Okay, counselors, that brings us to the consent docket. Does anyone wish to remove or clarify, or is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the consent docket.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent docket. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, the consent docket is approved. Do we have public comments? Okay. So we have public comments on agenda. We have a few public comments, and I just want to read the rules. To remind everybody, Speakers are limited to speaking about a specific item on the agenda. Only those who signed up to speak will be allowed. Each speaker has 3 minutes to address the council. When you come to the podium, please state your name and address. And if someone has already said something before, you're welcome to come up and say it again, or you can just say, I believe what they said. Our first speaker, Shirley Weeks.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Shirley Weeks. I live at 71 University Circle. I congratulate the young man for overcoming his fear of public speaking. It's taken me many years, so keep on working on it. The city of Stillwater needs stable, good quality, and safe residential housing. Currently, Stillwater is below 50% owner-occupied housing. I repeat, the entire city of Stillwater is below 50% owner-occupied housing. I wonder what the percent number would be for the core community. We are moving away from a community of owner-occupied housing to investment rentals and commercial. Is this a desirable goal? Is it a desirable future? The PUD with commercial on 12th Street violates transition planning principles with a rapid nosedive decision to alter land use from residential to commercial. The disregard for transition planning procedures threaten all residential neighborhoods in Stillwater. The PUD with commercial threatens the 12th Street overlay process. The PUD with a commercial pharmacy will increase crime and safety concerns for a residential neighborhood. For a stronger community, please vote no on the first reading of the PUD at 1220 West 12th. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Weeks. Our next speaker is Michael Oliver.
My name is Michael Oliver. I live at 1123 South Gray here in Stillwater, and we are here tonight to ask that the City Council reverse the decision to develop the currently proposed PUD on 1220 West 12th Avenue. The City Council is elected to represent citizens of Stillwater, and the citizens have clearly expressed our desire to see no business development on the north side of 12th Avenue, but we have been ignored. This PUD is now inseparable from the overlays that were developed by the neighborhood residents at the instruction of the City Council. We must have been naive in thinking that we had a voice. It's become absolutely clear that our voice does not matter. Recently, the city decided to address low civic engagement. Actions by the city that have led us to where we are tonight discourage engagement by making it clear that businesses are prioritized over residents. I used to encourage friends and family to move to Stillwater, but have recently began telling them not to move here because citizens have no power. At the last City Council meeting, comments were made by the City Council that pharmacies bring crime to the area where they are located, yet a pharmacy was approved. And I thank you for acknowledging that you voted to increase crime in our neighborhood against our wishes.
Thank you, Mr. Oliver. Our last speaker is Elaine Courtwright. Okay, we have 2 more speakers. Elaine Courtwright is the next to the last.
My name's Elaine Courtwright. I live at 2208 West 11th. I am within 300 feet of the proposed overlay. I'm confused about what we're talking about tonight, whether we're talking about the PUD or if we're talking about the map amendment, MA 18-02. Which we initially discussed at the Planning Commission on February 6th. That item was tabled due to people who did not have correct information and were opposed. My understanding was the reason we asked to have this tabled from the agenda of the Planning Commission and of the City Council was to give us 90 days to go over the actual facts with people who are in opposition to MA 18-02. I think it would be helpful if the city put numbers on more of their maps and documentation. I am tired almost to the point of being punchy. I have spent so much time the past 2 days researching this and going back through records and downloading PDFs. Some items I was not able to download because they were in HTML format. I was not able to review the Planning Commission meeting of February 6th over the weekend because all I got was the City of Stillwater recycling and Smokey the Bear and promo. I could not actually review the meeting again. No matter what I tried. If I tried city commission meetings, same thing. And after 10 minutes, I had better things to do. So and the PUD blindsided me. What I was responding to was the public hearing notice that started off with the Planning Commission on February 6th, and then I thought was to be heard tonight. So I just think there's room for more clarity. I think when we have more clarity, we can have better discussions. Thank you.
Ms. Courtwright, if I may, to clarify, the ordinance on for tonight is regarding the PUD.
Okay.
It has nothing to do with the...
I couldn't tell from the agenda because there's no number. It doesn't refer to the PUD, and it doesn't refer to the map amendment. So it just, where's the wording? In either place. And I thought, well, we're talking about one or the other. We're talking about 12th Avenue land use plan, map amendment, application of overlays to specific properties. And it would have been helpful to me if perhaps parentheses, PUD, end parentheses, had been added to that. Then I would know what we're talking about because I was going by my city notice.
Well, and the item on the agenda for the 12th Street overlay is to strike it to give that 90 days to look
Right.
at it more.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Courtwright.
Sorry for the confusion.
Okay, our last speaker is Matt Kernke.
Hi, Matt Kernke, 1503 West 10th Avenue. I'm just up the street from the PUD, and I basically just wanted to echo Mr. Oliver's comments about frustration with this entire process and feeling like our voices have not been heard. But that was it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so all of our public comment speakers. That brings us to public hearings. Item A, receive public comment regarding a request for closing of the right-of-way of alley between Miller and Matthews Streets and Knobloch and West Street, CC-18-14. Mr. Dorman, did we have good notice on this item?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. McNichol.
And Lance Gross will have that report.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Lance Gross with Development Services. The closing request before you is a platted alley between Knobloch Street, West Street, Matthews Avenue, and Miller Avenue. The purple boundary indicates the alley to be closed. St. John's University Parish and Cowboy Athletics LLC have submitted an application to close the alley and to eventually develop the site. There are 3 utilities currently in the alley: a sewer line, telecommunication line, and an O&G gas line. The utilities will need to be abandoned or relocated. If the utilities are to remain, an easement must be provided. This is a street view looking from Miller Avenue to the northwest. You can see the church on the left, and the drive there is actually the alley that runs north and south. Are there any questions?
Councilors? Okay. At this time, I will open the public hearing. I'm going to have help on how to pronounce the father's last name.
First speaker, Father Kerry Wakulich. And Stephen goes.
And I have Stevens next, or together.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. This would be great.
Stephen Gose with Gose and Associates, 113 East 8th. Here with the church and asking for the closure of the alley. The church has been working with Cowboy Athletics on this too. The church wanted to close their half, we might as well close the whole thing. So working with them to come to an agreement on this. The utilities that Lance referenced, there are some preliminary plans to take the sewer, depending on what happens with the church layout, to move it to the east to West Avenue. The length of that will depend on what OSU wants to do. The gas line only serves the church property, the church building, and the apartment complex that's there. So we've worked with the gas company. That'll get pulled back to Miller once the project moves forward. And we've worked with the electric department about what's going on with the poles in that area. So all those utilities will be addressed. If we need to dedicate easements, we will. But here to answer any questions that we may have, and Father Kerry's here as well.
All right, counselors, questions? Okay.
Just to clarify,
Okay.
we'll close the street, close the alley.
Close the alley.
And then when any other new construction happens, the utilities will be moved?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, at this time I will close the public hearing and ask staff for the recommendation.
Staff recommends closing the alley contingent upon the applicant addressing the existing utilities.
Okay, thank you. Counselors, questions?
Motion to approve staff recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve staff recommendation. Please vote. And with a vote of 5-0, CC-18-14 is approved. That brings us to item B. Receive public comment regarding a request for a map amendment to rezone property addressed at 810 North Lincoln Street from RT Residential 1 and 2 family to RTM Residential 2 family and multifamily, CC-18-12. Mr. Dorman, did we have good notice on this item? Yes, ma'am. Mr. McNichol.
Lance Gross will present this report as well.
The map amendment before you is located at 810 North Lincoln. The applicant wishes to rezone the property from RT 1 and 2 family residential to RTM 2 family and multifamily residential. The purple boundary indicates the subject site, which is surrounded by RTM zoning to the south and to the east. RT is located to the north, and University zoning is located to the west. The Baptist Collegiate Ministry plans to develop the site as a parking lot for the new Baptist Student Union to be built to the east across the street. These two lots right here are the location where the Baptist Student Union will be constructed. A standalone parking lot is not permitted in the RTM zoning district. However, the applicant's engineer is in the audience and will be able to explain the applicant's intentions. This is a street view looking at the subject site. It's looking directly to the west from Lincoln, and the residential use currently on the site is a duplex. Are there any questions?
Counselors, questions? Okay, no questions. So at this time, I will open the public hearing. We have one speaker. Two speakers. Okay. Stephen Gose and Lewis Green.
Good evening again, Stephen Gose with Gose and Associates here on behalf of the Baptist General Convention, requesting this zoning to allow a parking lot to support the church building that they're going to build to the east, the campus center. So we will follow all the rules and regs with regard to paving, drainage, all of that stuff. And again, the parking lot is to support the structure to the east that will also have a 19 spot parking lot with it. So here to answer any questions.
Counselors?
So the parking lot is not allowed in the RTM zoning designation, so why that zoning?
I guess that's a conflict of interpretations of the zoning. A parking lot is not allowed in RTM, but a church is. And our take is that this is a parking lot to support the church and therefore is a similar use. To go with a zoning district that allows a parking lot on its own would be RMI, which would be a much higher intense zoning district that would not fit in with the surrounding zoning. And if I was you all, I wouldn't approve that zoning request. So
Okay.
that's why we're here. I mean, so we'll work out the parking lot issue one way or the other, whether it gets built or not, but we still need to ask for the zoning so it's consistent. So,
Any other questions?
all right, thank you.
All right. Does Mr. Green wish to speak? Oh, miss, I'm so sorry.
For the record, it's Lois Green.
I'm so sorry, Lois.
Can we pull that map back up, please? Anybody? I have not the capability. This one. They have, Baptist Christian Ministries has a giant parking lot already. I live in the duplex around the corner on 1119 West Tyler. It's around the corner, but you can't imagine how many times I have called the city to complain about, when I first moved in there was 2 duplexes there that had burned down. I don't know if they owned the property already, but what they did was they tore them down and they made a ramp for all the water to run down into my property. I have called code enforcement. They have dead trees on the property that are ready to fall on my house. I know this zoning over here, I'm thinking, really? They have a parking lot already in existence that, according to the building department and code enforcement, is an illegal parking lot already. And now they want to knock down this little bitty property for a parking lot? It makes no sense to me. When it rains, and I have told these guys, I have talked to them personally, I have talked to the planner, I have talked to code enforcement, I have talked to the building department. They say there's nothing they can do because that parking lot that they already have across the street is illegal. Now, I talked to the planner this morning, Tom Coots, is that his name? He said, I've never seen anybody parking over there. Every time I go by there, there's nobody there. I have pictures so far back. This parking lot's been going on for over 2 years. On game day, it's crazy. But when it rains, my front yard and this whole corner lot right here becomes a river. It is causing damage to the driveway. It is causing damage, I mean, literally out and back of the house. It turns into a river. I was so mad one morning, I called the city, and I got code enforcement, and I got the building department, and I said, somebody's got to come out here and check the damage that's happening to this property because of this parking lot. And out of the blue, the tax assessor is there. And I'm thinking, okay, this guy showed up. That was quick. And I took him, we walked all the way around, and it had just rained. So, I mean, water was this deep in my front yard. I mean, it got free run. The tax officer's office started taking pictures, but according to the planning department, according to everybody, there's nothing they can do. I'm just here because I just happened to see the sign in front of the property. And and it's a rental property, but it backs up to the school. I just can't understand why they want to switch the zoning. That's going to be the beginning of the end for zone changes. To knock down a little bitty house for a parking lot that isn't even a quarter of what they have already. the planner tells me that they've submitted plans for this big giant student union over there, but I can't find the plans. I just want, okay, I'm done. I'm livid because of the damage that is being done to this property right here, where I live. All right, any questions?
Counselors, questions?
No. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I will close the public hearing and ask for staff's recommendation.
The Planning Commission recommended approval by a vote of 4-0.
Counselors, questions?
Lance, can you address some of those comments from the speaker? Is that a vacant lot that's there right now that is not, that people are parking in?
It is a vacant lot, yes.
And this is across the street from the requested zoning?
That is correct, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And that vacant lot is where the new student union is going to be built
That is
eventually?
correct, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And the drainage, if there are drainage issues, it will all be addressed whenever the building permit comes in. And Stephen Gose is here, and he might be able to elaborate on that as well.
Well, I just wanted to clarify what land we were talking about and
Yes.
where we were.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Thank you.
Yes.
Other questions? Is there a motion?
Motion to accept staff recommendation.
We have a motion and a second to accept staff recommendation. Please vote. And with a vote of 5-0, CC-18-12 is approved, and I hope that the draining issues are dealt with. All right. That brings us to item C, receive public comment regarding a request for a closing of a portion of a right-of-way of Lincoln Street adjacent to 412 through 416 South Lincoln Street and 1201 West 4th Avenue, CC-18-13. Mr. Dorman, did we have good notice on this item? Yes, ma'am. Mr. McNichol.
And Lance Gross will continue to report.
Yes. The right-of-way closing request is located at 412 through 416 South Lincoln Street and is indicated by the purple boundary on the map. The 400 through 500 block of South Lincoln Street has varying widths of right-of-way from 45 feet to 65 feet. The request will bring the north half of the block to a consistent 50-foot width, which is the minimum requirement. There are no utilities in this area running north and south. There are some utilities crossing east and west. An easement may be needed prior to vacation of the right-of-way. The property is planned to be redeveloped. This is a view looking from 4th and Lincoln, looking to the south. Any questions?
Okay, counselors, any questions? Okay, at this time I will open the public hearing. And Stephen Gose?
Lance and I should just stand up here. Again, Stephen Gose with Gose and Associates here on behalf of the applicant. Lance covered everything. I'm just trying to unify or make a uniform right away, north-south through there. The two utilities he talked about are the electric and the gas. We've been in talks with both the gas company and the electric company about how we deal with that, the utilities that are running through there. So I'm just here to answer any questions.
Counselors? Okay, at this time I will close, thank you. I will close the public hearing and ask for staff recommendation.
Staff recommends approval of the right-of-way request along Lincoln Street.
Counselors?
Motion to accept staff's recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept staff recommendation on CC-18-13. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, CC-18-13 is approved. Item D was stricken, so that takes us to general orders. Mr. Oh, we need a vote to strike that. Okay. Is there a motion and a second to strike item D?
Motion to strike item D under public hearings, public comment regarding the 12th Avenue Overlay District application.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to strike item D. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, it has been approved. Now we'll go to general orders. Mr. McNichol.
Fiscal year 2018 pavement management system projects will be presented by Monty Carnes.
Good evening. Here to present the fiscal year 18 pavement management projects. These were developed after we received the pavement inventory report that we spoke about a couple of weeks ago. We have the first three items there, crack sealing, deferred maintenance, and thin surface overlays. If you approve this program, we have those bid packages ready to bid, and they would advertise this coming Sunday. The thin surface overlay is also the micro surfacing. The fiscal year 17 micro surfacing is scheduled to begin sometime in May or June. Those crews typically move through the state during that period of time. We want to get that out for bid so that if the contractor who has that contract, if he were to be successful, hopefully we would save a mobilization charge, and his competitor would likely be in the area as well and might be interested. So we think that would give us the optimum time for competitive bids. The crack sealing deferred maintenance locations, those will be determined in conjunction with our operations department and also our inventory management program, and those will kind of be ongoing through the year. The micro surfacing, the streets we're recommending to you are 19th Avenue from Sanger to Western, Husband Street from Lakeview to Airport Road, and Miller Avenue from Duck to Main. Where there's already pavement markings, those would be replaced as part of those projects. Our mill and overlay projects, we're recommending Main Street from 6th to McElroy, and we're going to ask the design engineers to look at the intersection of McElroy and Boomer to consider doing a white topping or a concrete overlay on that. We would mill that down 4, 5, 6 inches, replace it with concrete in an effort to stop that shoving of, as you remember correctly, it's what we call super elevation, but the roadway's banked because it's going around a curve, and it tends to rut very badly and get shoved around because of the traffic that's on it. So we're trying to smooth that up, make that last longer. Again, I mentioned Duck Street from 12th to 6th Avenue, and then Jefferson Street from 12th to 9th Avenue. That's kind of in a residential area, and it's really in bad shape, and we want to put a little asphalt on that. Reconstruction, we've got Sanger Road from 6th Avenue to 400 feet north of the bridge over Stillwater Creek. A couple of years ago, you approved a project to rehabilitate that bridge, spent several $100,000. At that time, an attempt was made to concrete the approaches, an attempt to not carry so much dirt and gravel to extend the life of that bridge. That effort was not successful. It's accumulated a lot of debris Our operations group has gone out and cleaned that out, but that would be an ongoing maintenance concern, and not doing it rapidly deteriorates the life of a bridge. I will tell you, when I did bridge inspections 25 years ago, I came upon a bridge in similar condition to that. I had to dig out all the debris around the joints, and when I got all the debris out, they were completely rusted, and you could grab the lower member and kind of move it, which was not a good thing. I was surprised the bridge was still standing. We were fortunate to get the school bus stopped before they ran the next morning. So that this paving will allow us not to have so much debris and reduce our maintenance on that item. Richmond Road, that project from Perkins East to the right-of-way, that's a very short distance. That's basically along Perkins Road. The culvert underneath that has failed. It's a very deep fill, kind of exceeds the capability of our operations group to do that. So we're proposing to include that and have a contractor come in and replace that culvert and then reconstruct the road on top of it. Excuse me. We're asking for money for the sidewalk improvements as part of our Complete Streets program. We don't really have a location determined on that. We have several candidates, but we want to begin addressing complete streets with that item. Then the other reconstruction would be 4th Avenue from Washington to Hester, and Hester from 6th to 4th Avenue. You will notice or remember that there are two large residential, multi-residential projects going in there. That's part of the form-based code area. Those developers are required and have in their plans to replace half the street adjacent to their properties. And we just don't, and those are some of the roughest riding streets we have. And so it didn't make sense to us to have half of the street paved and the other half not paved. And so we're going to complete those half of the streets. And then from Hester north of 4th, the anticipation is that'll be completed after the Performing Arts Center is completed. That project also requires that we have some water lines be relocated, and we're working with SUA folks and water to make that happen. Our plan right now is we'll incorporate the engineering for that and the design contract for the pavement to make sure that's all coordinated, and we will also bid it in one package to make sure that work is coordinated together. Funding for this, of course, comes mostly from the half-cent sales tax, a little over $4.6 million. The developers of those two projects have already paid a transportation fee that amounts to $57,000 for basically the center lane for paving on 4th Street, and we would capture those monies for a total project of about $4.7 million. Be happy to answer any questions. Oh, that 4.7 does not include the water line that'll come out of the SUA funds.
Counselors, questions?
I don't have a question, but because of the way you presented at the last meeting, I was able to actually understand all of that. Of what you want to do to each of those roads, and then I did pay attention to that. So one of the things we hear the most about is our streets and the fact that there is actually a sensible plan on how we're going to make those improvements. So thank you for being diligent, and I appreciate the effort.
You're welcome.
I just wanted a couple questions and to highlight a couple things in your report, Monty. One question on the reconstruction of 6th around that bridge. We had a request from a citizen about trying to pave or at least do something about that Sanger Road north all the way to the city line because of the traffic that enters that way to go to the Botanic Gardens. Is there a way as part of that project to try to get that? I don't know how much farther north from that 400 feet north of the bridge to the city line it gets, but is there a way in that project to stretch it?
Yeah, the county commissioner and I have had discussions about possibly him picking up that section of the pavement as he extends on north to McElroy.
Okay.
But if that falls through, we can certainly come back and revisit that and bring that back to the council.
Yeah, just to get it up to where that entrance
To
is to the
Virginia.
Botanic. Yeah.
Yes.
And then just to highlight a couple points on the pavings around Fourth and Hester, if the properties on the other side of the street were to redevelop under form-based code, where those, it's now been repaved, but that developer would have been required to pay that cost. It looks like in here we're still going to require that developer to reimburse.
That would certainly be the argument we would make.
Okay.
Yeah,
So if
that
we
they
pay
would
those
have
costs
pay
now
for
to
it.
get full width reconstruction, and then somebody comes in to develop on the other side, they're going to have to pay us back for that.
That's
redevelopment.
correct. That's
Okay.
correct.
And then I noticed in here a comment about OSU actually paying to do that reconstruction north of 4th Street along Hester.
That's the understanding we have right now.
Okay.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I have, Monty, you mentioned sidewalks, not specific sidewalks, but sidewalks to be considered to be part of complete streets.
Yes.
And just a point of complete streets is a much large. I know you know this,
Yes.
but just for the point, complete streets is a much larger concept than sidewalks.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Good point, Vice Mayor.
But it would be great to get some sidewalks on along existing streets as well.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Any more questions? Does this require a vote? Do we have to vote? Okay, so is there a motion?
Motion to approve the fiscal year 2018 pavement management system projects recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve CC-18-17. Please vote. And with a vote of 5-0, CC-18-17 is approved. That brings us to item B, Mr. McNichol.
Mr. Carnes is going to present that report as well.
So I'm going to invite Zach Henson up. Zach prepared the annual report. Zach is our new stormwater program manager. He started the 1st of January. We're very pleased to have him on board, and he prepared the report and knows it a lot better than I do.
Good evening.
Welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here, pleasure to be serving the community of Stillwater. This annual report is a requirement of the Oklahoma Department of Environmental Quality. We have to submit it every year by March 1st as part of our permit requirements. Basically, this is entirely pertaining to water quality, stormwater quality, how many pollutants can possibly go into the watersheds around us, and what the city can do to prevent that, kind of counteract it. This permit has 6 main requirements that are called the minimum control measures, and the city of Stillwater has several items for each of those minimum control measures that we try to perform each year to try to reduce the amount of pollutants that are going into our waterways. Each year we do an annual evaluation. We look at each of those items that we decided to getting a little nervous the first time speaking to Frank County.
You're doing great.
Here. Exactly. So yes, we evaluate these. If they're effective, we can continue to do them next year. If they're not effective, we do have the option to change them out, alter them, do whatever we need to do to try to improve upon them and make them better. Of course, this document is available to all of you, so I won't bore you with going down each table. There are several tables, and hopefully it's in an organization that is easy enough to follow and easy enough to understand what we were after. There are a few things that we are changing for 2018, but for the most part, we were very successful in 2017. As you move further through the document, there are a few pages. Let's see if I can get back to the correct table. Table 4 on page 8, the progress towards pollution and discharge reductions. This is a particularly good table, in my opinion. These are definitely milestones that the city was able to accomplish. We have some good numbers from last year, considering the shortfalls created by shortfalls created by lack of staffing with the stormwater program. Luckily, there were individuals within the department that were able to divide those tasks up, and they were able to accomplish quite a bit. So those numbers are very good for a city this size. And then the last section of this is just briefly going over the individual activities that we did. We had the trash off, or several, I don't think the number is right there. I believe we had 28 individuals volunteer last year, and we removed, I believe, somewhere to the tune of 40 trash bags, just walking around picking up trash. And so every bit of that is less going into our watershed and goes towards helping us maintain the water quality of the city. We also have a drain marking program where we have citizens go around marking drains, letting everyone know that we cannot dump anything down the storm sewers because it goes straight to a creek, untreated, unlike the wastewater treatment plant. And the rest of the document is basically just overall data collection. If there's anything, of course, that you want more detail on, I'd be more than happy to address anything.
Councilors.
So I just want to go back to the very beginning, because you said there's a permit here that we have to get, and I wonder if you could help kind of explain who we get a permit from and why we need it.
So it originated by the 1972 amendments to the Clean Water Act. There was a series of events after that that ultimately lead to us getting this permit through the Oklahoma Department of Environmental Quality. It's called the OKR 04 General Permit for Phase 2 municipalities. This is geared towards any municipality between 10,000 and 100,000 citizens, so Stillwater fits right in the middle of that. It is a permit that is reissued every 5 years, so we have to apply for renewal every 5 years. And we basically just report straight to the DEQ. The DEQ then reports to the EPA.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
Other questions? Well, I will just say welcome, and you did a great job on your first presentation.
Thank you.
I'd like to add a couple more points. One, there's a lot of information in that report, and Zach came here on January the 3rd, and he met the deadline of having that done. As a matter of fact, we reviewed that report for a couple of weeks before he got it down there, so we were well within the deadline. And learning the city and learning where to pull all that information together, we thought was very, very good. Secondly, one of the requirements that we could have done a little better on is called an illicit drainage ordinance. And that has to be, as part of this requirement and part of our permit, is that spells out things that can be discharged and can't be discharged to the stormwater system. We've completed that. I deliberately held off on that till we got that position filled because I wanted the input from that person because they were going to be much more knowledgeable than I was going to be, and DEQ was okay with that. So we've completed that. City attorney has it in his office, and they're reviewing it. We expect to have some iteration back and forth on that document. But sometime later this spring, we'd like to have a study session with you to discuss that document, and then early part of the summer have it approved.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. An approval? Okay, is there a motion?
Motion to approve the presentation of the MS4 2017 annual report.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve CC-18-16. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, CC-18-16 is approved. It brings us to item C, consider development of Block 34 Trust Authority, CC-18-18. Mr. McNichol.
I'm going to kick this back and forth between John Dorman and me. Block 34 Task Force, in trying to determine the best way to proceed, particularly with the area of applying for grant funding and that kind of thing, ask us, city staff, to take a look at developing a trust where that funding could be applied for and held in a trust for Block 34. And in terms of the legal document, and how that works after several questions today on exactly how that trust would work. I think one of the things we want to make clear is that this trust would have no asset. And beyond saying that, I think that I would prefer Mr. Dorman to explain the draft trust document that's before you.
The draft that's in front of you is not unlike the trusts that are presently in place for the library and for the Western Payne County Ambulance Trust Authority, or WEPCATA as certain people refer to it. As Norman mentioned, the idea here is to create an entity that will enable the members of the committee to start applying for grants and things of that nature, and then to be able to take that money and use it without having to keep coming back and asking for various things from the city. And the idea ultimately is that it would become a self-sustaining entity. It is still fairly broad in its terms, and if you've read through all of that, it's a fully loaded trust with a couple of exceptions, and the exceptions are, one, there would not be a conveyance of Block 34 to this trust. Now, that's not to say that in the future you may not want to amend this document and move Block 34 into it, but right now there's no conveyance, no lease, no fee simple transfer, anything of that nature. So that's not happening. And then secondly, we've also gone in there and basically taken out the authority to issue any kind of bonded indebtedness, mortgage any assets. So basically, the money that they raise will be the asset that they have, and $10 that's used in here, that's in the recitals for creation of the trust. So that's effectively what the trust, what do you call it, the trust estate is at this point. I mentioned that it had typical powers. The council will make appointments to this. The intention would be that if we create this trust, that the current members of the Block 34 committee would serve as the trustees, and they would actually sign the trust indenture as the initial trustees, and then the council would make the appointments on an annual basis. There'd be a drawing of lots to see who got the 1-year term, who got the 2-year term, and who got the 3-year term. Initially, and then at that point, then it's kind of off to the races. I mean, it is what it is. You've seen the documents that the trust have sent to you, and then I sent you a draft as well. It's not perfect, and there are certainly things we can still take out of there if we need to do that. But at this point, given where Block 34 committee is in their process, and I will tell you from having sat in a few meetings here in the last couple of months, they're moving very fast, and I would mention that all of the members are sitting out here tonight. That's how committed they are to this job that you've given them. This will help to expedite those processes, and so if you want us to move forward with it, then what the next step in this process would be for me to circulate whatever draft we decide on, and then bring that back to you along with a resolution at a future meeting. So that's kind of what I have to say at this point.
And I think I would like to make one addition to make perfectly clear to the public is that unless directed to do so by council in some future meeting, there would be no line item budget where any penny of tax dollars went into this trust. They, at least for the time being, would be on their own to raise their own money.
Okay, councilors, questions? Or is there a motion?
I have a couple questions.
Yeah, go ahead. You first. Go ahead.
So I'm just going to run through a couple of possible contingencies, and you can tell me what happens in these cases, right?
Of course.
First of all, so approving this trust doesn't obligate us to build anything particular on Block 34, doesn't obligate us to any particular project plan to happen on Block 34?
That's correct, because again, there's no conveyance of property, so before this trust could build anything or obligate the property, they would have to come to you.
So what happens if we put the trust in place, they get some grant money for some potential project to happen on Block 34, but for whatever reason it never happens, or they don't get enough grant money to actually make it happen? What happens to money that the trust may have collected that then the project doesn't come to fruition?
Well, it becomes, at least, it's a property of the trust unless there is something within the grant itself that directs that the property go somewhere else. So unless the grant itself said, if the trust dissolves, then it escheats to a governmental entity, or if there's a provision that the money is returned, that would be up to the grant itself. But it's not necessarily city property. It would be trust property. And so that's kind of where it would sit.
So it doesn't create any obligation on the city?
No, this is a separate legal entity. I mean, it's very clear in the trust, as it is in all of our trusts, that the obligations are the trusts are just that, the obligations of the trust.
And so basically what we're doing here is we're creating an entity that, or what we would be doing here, would be creating an entity that allows the task force to pursue options to accomplish their goal without obligating the city to put any money, to approve any plan, without obligating the city to really anything other than just creating this entity to allow the task force to pursue options.
That's correct.
Thank you.
And that pretty much covered the question. I had one last question, though. So in response to the statement that the trust would hold no assets, so that does not mean that if they were to garner a grant, that money could not stay within the trust indefinitely, as long as the trust remains, solvent. Is that correct?
That's correct. If anything they earn, it's the trust's money, so that it would always be their asset.
Okay, thank you.
Does setting up this type of trust kind of help with raising some funds and getting some additional grants that maybe would not be possible if this did not exist?
I think that possibility exists. I can't point to a specific situation, but some folks like to give to trusts that won't necessarily give to a governmental
So it's a way
entity.
of broadening opportunities for funding to come in.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the development of a Block 34 Trust Authority.
Second.
We have a
We
motion.
actually probably don't, you just need to tell me whether to bring it back or not at this point. We have to, the way it works is that you actually have to accept a beneficial interest. And so if you want to do that, then I can bring back a resolution whenever you tell me to bring it back. And that would basically say, we want to move forward with this. And once the city accepts a beneficial interest, then that aspect is done. Once it's filed with the Secretary of State, then it becomes an operating trust.
Based on the commitment to this committee, is it feasible to expect it by the next meeting?
Yes, ma'am, I could have it here by the 12th.
So, sorry, just to piggyback on something you said there, the city has to accept a beneficial interest because this trust is obligated to act in the best interest of the city. The city's the beneficiary of the trust's assets?
Yes.
Okay.
All of
what
it's-
we
all of
would
it-
be accepting the beneficial interest that this trust creates.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so we would like to see it on the 12th.
I will have it here ready to go.
Okay. That brings us to ordinance. Oh, absolutely.
I
Vice
just
Mayor.
wanted to thank the trust, the task force, perhaps, the task force for taking this next step and moving us further along the line.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate your work.
Okay. Ordinances on first reading, Mr. Dorman.
Ordinance number 3397, an ordinance approving a planned unit development and the rezoning of certain tracts of land as more particularly described in this ordinance from small lot, single-family residential RSS district to commercial shopping CS and office O districts and providing for severability. This is the 12th Street PUD that you approved, I believe, a couple of meetings ago.
Can I ask for a couple clarifications on this? So this ordinance is enacting the decision that the council made last meeting, correct?
Yes, sir.
What is the effect of a yes or a no vote on if the council were to deny this ordinance, what would the effect be on that decision, that prior decision?
That would be the end of it. At least it wouldn't, this ordinance wouldn't get through a first reading. It's always possible for you to bring up a subsequent ordinance since you've already gone through the hearing process, but for all intents and purposes, it would be dead.
Okay.
And when you say it would be dead, you mean?
The ordinance and that would be effectively be denying the application after you directed us to bring back an ordinance that would fulfill the request that was before you.